What is up, guys? This is John, aka Pokemon, and today I am joined here with Chris,
Hey.
and we will be doing the second Power Rankings, week number 3, and yeah, that's about it. So if you guys enjoyed last week's, that is great. It's just the same type of a thing. If you didn't see that one, I guess I'll go really quickly and explain what the power rankings are. It is just our opinions on where everyone should be placed, because it's easy to go through the standings and you could just say, oh, this guy's first because he's 3-0 with this differential, and then down the list that we go. But because, there's so many other factors that go into it, it's cool and nice to talk about who we think is the best, based on the record, based on how they've played, based on their team, this and that. And it kind of gives us more of an accurate, I guess, depiction of what the playoff race could potentially be, where we think people might fall in at the end of the season. Regardless, it's just me and Chris's opinions. It's a lot of fun, so sit back, relax, and enjoy us talking about people. So, Chris, number 1 and number 2 haven't really changed, have they?
No, and probably not going to change until they play each other at this rate. They're just going super strong. Number 1, again this week, Georgie Porge, Sceptile MC, the San Francisco Arcaniners. Killing Baby Raj this week. He is official Preschooler Jones, winner of Baby Bowl. All hail Preschooler Jones. Didn't do his normal 5-0 curb stomp this week.
That is true.
A very close and tight knit 1-0, which is still good, but Roger really took him to the mat this week.
Yeah, no, that match, we'll talk about Roger later, but I really think that match showed more for Roger than it did George. I think Roger just played a really good game. Turn 1, he leads off with Garchomp. I'm pretty sure it's Garchomp. He led off with something physical, and it was special against George's Arcanine. George missed a Will-O-Wisp. Earth Power almost took him down to took him out in one hit, and that was just a really good start to the game. And I think Roger, along with George and Miguel and some other people, but just thinking about those ones right now, are the people who are really coming out with some pretty unique sets, some really good teams, and it was just a really good match. And I think George just played really good. He beat a really good opponent, got another win, and there's not much to say. George has gotten 5-0, 5-0, and he got a 1-0, so he's undefeated. He has the best differential in the league. And
only by 1 though.
Yeah.
Our number 2 is closing the gap on him, which is why we should go ahead and go down to Miguel, who's now only 1 point ahead in differential after a significant win this week. Not necessarily the most impressive win, because he was playing Frank, who is the last place team at this point in standings, but still a great win nonetheless, and another big week for Greninja and another big week for his differential, which is what he needed at this point to catch up to George.
And for those of you who are probably wondering, why is there no switch between George and Miguel? I know some people say George is the best, some people say Miguel is the best. Well, 2 things. First, last week we said no matter what really happens, unless Miguel loses, that match doesn't really matter. He's going against the worst player in the league, and he beat the worst player in the league pretty badly. And George is going against an up-and-coming player, someone who had a really good, kind of a meh first week, really good second week, and third week he was pretty good, but George still beat him, so there wasn't really much of a way for either of them to switch spots unless someone lost. And they play week 4, so moving them right now would really be useless, because they're gonna really.
It would just be mind games to screw with them, which could be fun, but
we're gonna leave them be, and then they can show us who the better battler is. Obviously, one match doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't really prove that, but this match will show who is number 1 in the power rankings. But there's not really much to say for Adam or George at this point. Or not Adam,
Miguel or George.
Yeah. Miguel or George.
Adam wishes he was in the top 2.
Adam wishes he was there. He's got to prove it, but they're 3-0, plus 11, plus 10, dominating the league, dominating their conference. It's going to be hard for anyone to catch up to them. But I think it's time to move on to number 3, which is actually Demo, coach of the Cleveland Slowbros. Now, Demo is coming off of a loss, but it was a pretty good loss against another really good team, Adam. And usually when someone loses, they'll go down the power rankings, but I don't think there was enough evidence for Demo to go down. It was a really good match, and it was a really close game, honestly. It was good for both players. And I think we decided that Demo's just played, or I just had the best season, the most consistent season. Won 2 games pretty solidly big, and he still has +4 after a loss. So 2-1. He's looking really good. I expect him to bounce back next week.
Yeah, it's a thing to consider at this point. Demo's 2-1, but he's still +4. When Adam was at 2-1, which is where he is now, he's still only at +1. After one loss, he was in the negatives. Demo's one loss, even if you take away one of his wins, he's still up there. It's not really, it's like you said, he's been winning consistently. He's been winning with thorough numbers, and so far his one loss, which isn't necessarily enough to make a pattern, it was a good loss. He kept his differential low, very close, and it really helps. I think it's actually, he actually lost by 2. I'm sorry, I've been saying 1, but that's a thing that matters in this league. Differential comes down to a lot, especially between those two, because like George and Miguel, they are also in the same. Adam and Demo are in the same conference, and right now they are the top 2 in their conference. So they want to make sure that they're the one with the higher differential if they have the same ranking, so that whoever's in third place can't sneak up on them and potentially take their spot heading into the playoffs at the end of the season.
That's a good point, because I was just looking. Sam got a win this week. We'll get to him eventually, but he is now 1-2, but he's at -8. But if he's able to string along a couple of wins, get the same record, whoever's in second place, potentially, if Sam beats one of them really big, then he could move up and possibly take that spot. So if you're ahead with +4 and the third place guy is at -8 and Adam's only at +1, there's a big enough gap that depending on how the matches go, that person could catch up. I remember in my season, I had some scares with Cooper moving up the ladder and trying to catch me. And, it's one of those things. It really does matter. Differential matters a lot. And it's kind of weird because you want to win. But when you're winning, you also want to make sure you win by as much as possible. When you're losing, you want to shave the differential as much as possible. I mean, the playoff race is, it comes down to differential. Wins first, but there's only 8 weeks. So if you're even going to be in the playoff running, you're going to have a good amount of wins. And the differential means a lot. But I think one of the bigger things is with Demo for number 3. He's had a lot of games with some really, really good predictions, and he's been doing a lot with a team that a lot of people didn't expect him to do well with. And he surprises people every week. And last week, he had a lot of good predictions. And I think one thing that's really hurting Adam right now is that game against Miguel, losing his win condition in turn 2. It just seems like Demo might be a little bit in front of him when it comes to predicting, saving the things he needs for the end, and just,
Yeah, I mean, I think Demo's just got the instincts. He may not necessarily have the in-depth planning that Adam has, because Adam's putting in hours of work here.
Yes, he is.
If you ever talk to the guy or check out his stuff, like, he's putting in the work as far as planning out his team, contingencies, teching weird abilities for certain things. It just seems to be right now Demo has really on fire instincts. He seems to be able to call the shot that needs to be called at any given time, and it's working for him. You can't take that away from the guy.
I 100% agree with that. But I think it is time to move on to number 4, Mr. Adam, Mighty Ducklets, who we've been talking about a little bit. So there's not as much to talk about, but Adam has made the jump to number 4. He went past Baby Roge, and he's at number 4. And I think he's just going to need a few more quality wins to move up the ladder a little more. I know he wants to be a little bit higher, but you got to string some wins. And in my eyes, that loss against the Real Morel really, really hurts him. I mean, you can't lose your win condition turn 2 in a match. That's the one thing you got to save, And it's
hard. Win condition assessment is huge, especially in a league in an era of where what the other person's bringing. Even the advent of Team Preview in Gen 5 created the concept of a singular win condition. I think the GBA kind of propels that even more forward, because you don't have to worry, about waiting until you see what they bring as much. You have a much better idea because it's only 11 possible things versus the 60 possible things in OU that week or whatever. So I mean, win condition preservation and making it work is obviously a top tier thing. I would also argue another thing that is why I kind of voted for Adam to be lower was because, again, going back to the Demo thing, differential assessment, Adam could have had a higher differential this week.
Yeah.
And he didn't think about it, and he didn't play for that. And, you know, it's understandable. It's a different format. It's a thing where, like you were saying earlier, you have to think about that. Obviously, your first goal is, what do I need to do to win? And it's very easy to get in that fast-paced mentality, you know, that you see a lot of experienced showdown players go to, where, okay, I can go into this, get a kill, sack something, get another kill. That's the fastest way to win this battle, move on to the next thing, get my ladder points, and move up. But in the GBA, it's different. It might be a little bit better to take that extra 15 seconds of timer, go, oh, okay. Like, for example, when the battle against Demo, when they were down to the last couple of things, Adam didn't need to bring in Mammoth Swine for the Ice Shard. He ended up having hidden ice on his Thunderous. His Thunderous outsped the last two things. Instead, Adam brought the Mammoth Swine in. It went for the Ice Shard, got a kill, but then died to Life Orb recoil. Then Adam had to bring in Thunderous anyways and go for HP Ice on the last thing. While ultimately a win is a win, it was one less point a differential to help him out. And so that means that's 1 point higher differential Demo has and 1 point lower he has it this week. And that's the thing you have to assess and you have to bring to the forefront of your mind while you're playing these matches. What can I do to win by using and sacrificing the least possible?
That's a very, very good point. And another thing to note is they're both in the same conference, Demo and Adam. And one of them's 2-1+4, one of them's 2-1+1, and that is so significant. We've gone over it, but you can't really stress it enough, because if you won 2 and lost 1, but you're only above even by 1, then that means that you lost big time, and those wins you barely won. And, you know, a win is a win. But if anything, that loss should probably be closer to the wins and differential. I mean, if you're winning by a little and you want to, you know, make a statement that you are one of the best players, if not the best player in the league, your losses have to be close. You want to be in every game you lose, if you even lose a battle. So I think he's going to be able to move up the ladder. I'm pretty sure he can move up. It's just he needs to show us. I mean, he had solid win. He played Frank for a streak, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he had a win. It was a win. We'll just say that. I will explain later why any battle against Frank right now is kind of irrelevant at this point. So he played, and that was a W. And the second week, he kind of got crushed by, not crushed, but he significantly lost against Miguel. I don't remember the score, but he's only +1 after, you know, a 2-0. So I'm guessing it wasn't the best. And
no, he was, I think he lost 4-0.
Yeah, okay, so very bad. Got crushed. And then
granted, Miguel's on fire this week.
Oh,
he's doing,
yeah. No,
this season. He's doing great. So it's like, you lost to a good player.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Oh, you know, it's completely fair. I just know Adam wants to be #1. I've talked to him. That man wants to prove himself. And that's great.
Yeah, he's hungry for it.
Oh, he's hungry. But, you know, it's first week, I don't know. Second week, crushed. Third week, small win. So now it's just got to, you know, if he can build on that and prove that it's not going to be streaky and he's going to make a positive streak and it's going to get better and better, he's going to move up. But he needs to prove that. Right now it's bad, good. So, and the bad kind of outweighed, but the bad was worse than the good was.
It's noticeable problems he's going to need to correct if he wants to excel.
But we've spent enough time explaining why
Adam is terrible.
Yeah, Adam's not going to talk to us anymore, but that's okay, because we're going to move on to Baby Roge at #5. Now, this one's pretty obvious why he's at #5. He's 1 and 2, so he had to go down. There's no way he's going to stay at #4, but he's not going to go too far down, because he is actually the best when it comes to losing record. And, you know, he lost that. It wasn't really too bad. It wasn't, like, really significant, but it was a pretty solid loss. And then a really big win that, to me, proved a lot about him. And then a loss that, once again, proved a lot. I think Roger is really contender. I mean, he's behind in the Hoenn Conference. It's going to be hard for him to make the move up. But he is a really, really good player in the GBA.
Roger's doing really well. He's very consistent as far as things go, you know. When he's losing, he's not getting blown out of the water. He's really taking things down to the wire. That's what you need to do. He could stand to get some bigger wins, and he did kind of flub that up in his loss. Or he did kind of flub that up in his match against John Origins. He could have had a higher differential there, but he still did win that match solidly.
Yes.
And, you know, did himself right by that. So Roger definitely has the fundamentals of what's going on, and he is bringing some really cool stuff, you know, like he brought special Garchomp this week. Yeah. Roger's not afraid to really, you know, use some weirder things. Granted, like Special Garchomp isn't Specs Machamp or anything, but it's
No,
it's
it's
still
good.
not something most people are going to be planning for.
Yeah.
I highly doubt George ran any calcs on could Arcanine
No,
take
he
Earth
completely
Power.
caught him off guard.
Like,
That first turn,
yeah.
I know George was just like, oh my god, what's going on right away. And that was brilliant on Roger, especially against someone who's just completely, destroyed his other opponents when it came to planning, to predicting, everything about it. And right away, Roger took the advantage. He couldn't run away with it and win it, but still, I mean, that's a really good start, and that's what you need to
No,
do.
I mean at this point, anyone taking George down to less than a 5-0, it was unprecedented.
Yeah, so
So even losing, Roger went and did some damage. He put a bruise on a guy.
yeah,
So
a pretty significant bruise.
yeah,
And yeah,
So,
I
Roger's very much still in the race. Obviously, Miguel and George are higher up there, but Roger's still hanging in there. To have a losing record, but still have a good differential at this point, nothing wrong with that.
No,
Like,
not at all. And actually, moving on to number 6, this one wasn't surprising, but it was really nice. Someone had to get out of the 0-3 slump, and that was Sam, Newcastle United.
Yeah.
And that was
Forcibly,
Ugh.
one team had to get out of
Yeah.
the 0-3.
Now the thing is with both of them though, I thought both of them were really good players, and they've had a really slow start, but I still could see either of them making it into the playoff race. I mean, the worst they are is 2 games out, so it's not that far away, and it's surprising if you look at it. Sam has a worse differential with a win than John Origins does with 3 losses, so you can have an argument for both of them, but Sam did win. It's a pretty significant win, and though one thing that was win it with this battle, and just to kind of dispel everything and ignore it, John used a berry that wasn't allowed. We're not entirely sure if it mattered. There's been some talk there was a comparable berry. There's some talk that comparable berry wasn't going to work. In the future, the battle's not going to go to Showdown. It was just going to go to Wi-Fi. So that could have, that really could have changed things. But in the end, the win for Sam would remain. So that's all that really matters, and that's how we're gonna go forward. Now with this battle, it's kind of weird because there's a lot of, like, Sam had a lot of hacks that got rid of 2 things. I don't think it even mattered because Sharpedo was gonna sweep, but it was weird, just back and forth like craziness with both of them. I mean, the Talonflame, even though it wasn't like completely allowed, that was still like a crazy set no one saw coming. And then Sam had this, like the Rock Slide miss, takes this out with a crit, then Sharpedo just cleans up. I mean, I don't know. I give props to both of them. I think they both came up with good sets, and I think Sam just, came up with the right thing right away. The Sharpedo, which a lot of people criticized him for drafting, really made a big statement in this battle.
Yeah, it came in and won when he really needed it to.
Mhm.
Getting set back 0-3 at this point it's huge. It's not insurmountable, but it's huge.
Yeah.
And especially with a super low differential, he needs positive numbers. Granted, more positive numbers better. Any positive numbers necessary.
Yeah, and the first one's the
Absolutely.
hardest, so this could be the first of many wins for Sam. He's a great battler, and it seems like this week he finally found his win condition and used it. I don't know if he didn't find him the other weeks. It didn't really seem like anything did too much. The first week he only got a kill because of a crit. The second week, Rotom H did some work, and this week he found it and he swept his team. So definitely making good strides. I'm excited to see what he does next week. But I think it's time to move on to John. We've talked to him about him a little bit, and sadly, John is 0-3. And this one, I really think he could be a lot better. I mean, 0-3 -5, that's not a bad differential.
It's not. He's been doing really well, even losing. I mean, they've been close. A lot of them have been very close.
They've all been
Baby
really
Roger
close.
was really down to the wire. Like,
Mhm.
if he had one more turn of Trick Room, he could have won that match.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
and it's funny because you hear it all the time in, like, other sports teams, and you kind of like scratch your head, and until you actually like look in depth, it's hard when someone says it. But I think John is a scary 0-3. He hasn't gotten a win yet, but I think he could beat anyone at any time. He's an incredible battler. He definitely knows what he's doing. And I don't know what's holding him back. Maybe it's the roster. I know he picks some things. We actually had him went and looked through all the stats, and I think John has like one of the lowest attack and special attacks for any team. So maybe that's holding him back a little bit.
Yeah, He's down there. He's not the highest as far as a lot of things go. He does have, a lot of defense points as far as overall base stats go. I actually have that. I'll try and pull it up. But yeah, he's playing a lot of bulky lower tier stuff. He doesn't have the offensive power that a lot of the other teams have, but he's still been able to do things with it. It's just, I do think it's more effort for him to do the same thing.
Yeah, I have to wonder because he's bringing really good sets. He honestly, he might be bringing some of the best sets, and it's just he comes so close, but he can't make the final push. I do think we'll see him. I could, make a bold claim that he might even be 500 by the time the season ends. I mean, he just has been playing until he starts playing even worse. I think he has a good chance. He's been in every single battle. It's about time that he gets a win, and look out for him. That's all I'm gonna say. And the last person, Frank, FC Volcarona. This is the last time you're gonna hear us talk about Frank because he has dropped out of the GBA. He's leaving in last, 0-3, -11. Now, we're going to miss Frank, and he's going to get replaced by Gary or DS Reaver, but you won't see him until next week. Now, the reason we haven't put Gary in now, some people will be like, oh, they made the switch, why isn't he in the power rankings? Gary's not in the last place for the power rankings. Frank is
He hasn't
in last
done
place.
anything.
Yeah.
He hasn't played anything. There's nothing to rank for
So,
Gary.
actually, it's kind of exciting because he's really going to fuck up the power rankings. Because if Gary goes in, and let's just say he gets a win, he could move up right away because he's going to be 0-1. That's what he's going to be. And if he gets a big win, he could move into the top half.
For the purposes of tracking stats for the season, the team will remain, at 0-3, and if he wins, it would go to 1-3. But personally, for power ranking stuff, Gary would be a 1-0 team.
Yeah.
And for week 4, he's going up against Demo, who we rank fairly highly at this point. So if he manages to knock down a big guy on the yard as his debut match versus someone who's been doing the format for 3 weeks already, that's going to look good for Gary.
Oh yeah, Gary could possibly shoot up right into the top 4. I'm not saying he's going to go into number 1. That's a little ridiculous, but he could really make some noise and bump some people down, and they might not be happy about it. But you got to give everyone a fair shot, and that's how the power rankings go. It's who's playing the best. Gary might not have much of a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, even if he wins out, it's gonna be he might not even make it. If he wins out, he will beat George and Miguel, but they'd also have to get 2 other losses on their way down. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, right now, from even Miguel, I think he's 21 differential points away from him. So it's a really hard thing to do. Frank did not leave him with the best team. And if you guys were wondering why Frank left, real life, just way too much work. School just got way too busy. I think he told me he's like number 1 in his class, so he's really putting in a lot of work there. And
he's going to school to become a lawyer, and he's only going to get busier as the future goes on. It's not like this is a rough semester. This is arguably one of the slower semesters, and
Yeah, so it's very understandable that he had to go. He tried it, and we're happy to have had him, but sadly that's what happened. But now it's time for
he just does still want to stick around and help us out. Maybe you might even see him do some power ranking videos or match of the weeks or something like that if he has time. It's just he couldn't commit to a weekly thing, but
he's still part of the D League family. Yeah, he's always going to be around. He still has that awesome logo that he got, so he'll always be the FC Volcarona. We'll remember him for the calendar. Definitely not the 0-3 -11 start of the season. We're gonna erase that and put in Gary. We won't forget, but try to. It'll be better. But the era of Gary will be coming next week. Gary plays Demo, so that is definitely a match to watch out for. Definitely go subscribe to Gary DS Reaver. His link will be down below, along with the rest of the coaches' links. Check him out. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table, and I think that's about it for the power rankings, Chris. So, I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to other coaches, subscribe to the GBA channel if you have not already, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Word.